Donald Trump loves to paint himself as the world's last hope, the protector, and only he can save us from disaster. But today the New York Times just busted one of his biggest myths, and I have the breaking story and much more for you next. While on the campaign trail, Trump would say outrageous things just to get the base stirred up and the media to broadcast his every bizarre word. The steady diet of deranged disinformation included Orwellian things like,
"I will prevent World War III, and you are very close to World War III. If I didn't win, you would have a crash like the crash of 1929. You wouldn't have inflation. A lot of great things would have happened, but now you have millions and millions of dead people."
So among other things, Donald Trump is a time traveler. His fear-mongering took us back to 1929 and forward to World War III, and it worked. The base ate up the lies, and look where we are at this moment in time. And speaking of this moment in time, the New York Times published a blistering article that calls BS on one of his most blatant lies, something the base embraced and repeated often while on their way to the voting booth. I will dive into exactly what the Times revealed in just a moment, but first, since it's Sunday, the day when political programming dominates morning TV, let's take a quick look at a couple of swings that Democrat heavyweights took at Trump. Because tomorrow is the 4-year anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, a lot of today's conversation is about that. Have a listen as Nancy Pelosi describes Trump as sad and sick, and Adam Schiff frames his efforts as celebrating violence against our democracy.
There seems to be a continued effort to claim that he won in 2020.
It's really sad. It really is sad. And I don't know about the film that he had and the rest, but it's almost sick that he would be thinking that in 2020. He's won the election now. Mm-hmm. That will be clear. That will be clear. And tomorrow he will be clearly, we will be accepting the results of the Electoral College. So he should be triumphant about that. But to be still trying to fight a fight that he knows he lost is really sad.
Peacefully transfer power is a real solemn occasion, I think, for the whole country. But it has another meaning now that we had this terrible, violent attack 4 years ago. For those of us that were there in the Capitol, it's going to be, I think, quite an emotional experience to be back in that environment on that day. I invited Daniel Hodges, one of the Metropolitan Police officers who was being crushed in that revolving door, to remind people of what that day was really like, given all the revisionist history around it. But if the president goes forward with pardoning vast numbers of people involved in that violence, he will begin his new administration the way he ended his last administration, and that is by celebrating violence against our democracy. I think that would be a terrible start, send a terrible message about our democracy, about lawlessness, about people who attacked police officers. Be exactly the wrong message on and the wrong way to start out an administration.
I'm sure we'll have more about Trump's celebration of violence tomorrow, but in today's story, we are going to celebrate the New York Times for calling out one of Trump's biggest lies in a story that read, Trump sees the U.S. as a disaster. The numbers tell a different story. President Biden is bequeathing his successor a nation that by many measures is in good shape, even if voters remain unconvinced. The Peter Baker article went on to say, to hear President-elect Donald J. Trump tell it, he is about to take over a nation ravaged by crisis, a desolate hellscape of crime, chaos, and economic hardship. Our country is a disaster, a laughingstock all over the world, he declared on social media last week. But by many traditional metrics, the America that Mr. Trump will inherit from President Biden when he takes the oath for a second time 2 weeks from Monday is actually in better shape than that bequeathed to any newly elected president since George W. Bush came into office in 2001. And he said, jobs are up, wages are rising, and the economy is growing as fast as it did during Mr. Trump's presidency. Unemployment is as low as it was just before the COVID-19 pandemic and near its historic best. Domestic energy production is higher than it has ever been. And he said, still, few have been as extreme in their negative description as Mr. Trump, or as resistant to fact-checking. He has suggested falsely that immigration, crime, and inflation are out of control, attributed the New Orleans incident to lax border policies, even though the attacker was an American born in Texas, and as recently as Friday, called the country a total mess. The numbers and resulting analysis show an economy's health isn't just about the price of groceries. It's about jobs, wages, and opportunities that bring a brighter future for everyone. And by those measures, Biden's economy did pretty well in the face of many global challenges. Trump, on the other hand, fearmongered his way back into the White House with images of 1929, while at the same time planning schemes that will benefit himself and his billionaire friends. Trump said whatever he needed to return to power so he can influence the economy, not for the economic security of people like you and me, but for self-gain. The numbers didn't lie then, and they don't lie now, but Trump did, and he continues to.
Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That is what we should want for our daughters and for our sons, and that is what I want to see in a president of the United States of America.